It is very hot here in Seattle today, so I am not able to record where I usually do in my office, and I have the air conditioner on because I do not have central air, so if you can hear fan noise in the background, I'm sorry. I did my best to edit it out, but it is what it is. Hello, Internet. I'm Ren, and this is Ren Rants, a channel where I talk about things I care about, and today, that's unions. So, we are going to do a little combo breaker here in between Star Trek videos to talk about the WGA, SAG, AFTRA strikes, also known as the Hollywood strikes. This is the first time these unions have been striking simultaneously in over 60 years, so that kind of shows how dire things are. I know I've dialed back the political content on this channel in favor of focusing on things that bring me joy, but this topic is at least adjacent to pop culture, and we support striking workers here, so we're going to talk about it. I just want to briefly explain what's going on, why you should care, and what you can do to support striking workers in the film and television industry right now. There are also a lot of misconceptions flying around, so I'll try to address those as we go. For starters, what's happening? On May 2nd, 2023, the Writers Guild of America went on strike after contract negotiations with studios broke down. Writers walked out of various productions, which are now currently halted. And on July 14th, the Screen Actors Guild of America and the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists joined the WGA on the picket lines, as their negotiations also failed to find resolution. Hollywood is functionally shut down, which will really start to feel as the release of new shows and movies slows to a trickle, and I'm not going to pretend that doesn't suck. As someone who's immune compromised and whose world has grown a lot smaller since everyone else started pretending that COVID was over, stories, books, movies, TV shows have become something of a lifeline for me. But to an extent, they've always been a source of escapism for me, even since childhood. So I get it. I am sad. My favorite shows might be delayed by months or even potentially canceled as things progress, but I'd rather have nothing new to watch if it means that the people whose labor creates the content I enjoy can bargain for better compensation. The reality is that these writers and actors don't want to strike. They want to be working, but they also have bills to pay just like the rest of us. As broadcast viewership has dwindled with the rise of streaming services, the earnings of writers and actors have also dwindled significantly without being replaced by income from streaming. And in this era of consolidation and cost cutting, the risk of being replaced entirely with AI looms larger and larger. By the way, I know it's technically machine learning and not true AI. I don't want to debate that in the comments. We're calling it AI because that's what people are using colloquially and how it is being marketed. Now, you might be wondering why you should care. Hollywood writers and actors are all rich anyways, right? No, definitely not. I've seen a lot of people online frame this strike as something that only benefits elite and wealthy Hollywood actors and writers. While the biggest names in Hollywood are incredibly wealthy, they don't make up the bulk of the people represented by these unions. The reality is that the overwhelming majority of the 11,500 writers and 160,000 actors involved in these strikes earn an income that is middle class or significantly less. Many working actors, including plenty who are recognizable and have booked big shows or movies, still have to work day jobs and side hustles to make rent in between acting jobs. For example, Diane Guerrero worked as a bartender while she was on Orange is the New Black. She told one interviewer, everyone's reaction would be like, oh my God, I love you on that show, but also what are you doing here? It was this incredulity that was teetering on offensive. The average compensation for a screenwriter is between $17 and $42 an hour, neither end of which approaches being fabulously wealthy, particularly in larger cities. The averages for working actors are not much better. Many actors are now sharing their residual checks on social media, sometimes from wildly popular shows, and many of them are less than $1 per quarter. This can amount to just pennies per year. These insignificant sums aren't remotely proportional to the ongoing value generated by their work. Meanwhile, a studio executive was quoted by Deadline saying, the end game is to allow things to drag on until union members start losing their apartments and losing their houses. And I can't help but wonder, would this tactic work if the bulk of the striking workers were the wealthy elite? The studios are trying to bleed out the union so they can dictate the terms of the contract. And they're doing everything they can to break the strike, including petty, cruel things like cutting back all the branches from the trees outside Universal Studios to reduce shade available to the picket lines in 90-degree heat. Or potentially illegal things like designating unsafe construction areas as picketing zones, thereby forcing demonstrators to picket in busy streets, resulting in 2 being struck by vehicles so far. These are all deliberate choices made by the actual wealthy elite, executives paying themselves tens of millions of dollars while contributing nothing meaningful to their respective platforms. They don't create anything. They just sit back and make terrible decisions, prematurely cancel shows, and try to squeeze every last dollar out of us and their employees while providing as little value as possible. And that's what this new and hideous tactic of streaming services wiping shows and movies from existence is. It's a cost-cutting measure to avoid paying their pittance of residuals and dodge taxes. I have plans to do a longer video about this topic, but for now, suffice it to say, this is the kind of thing that will become more and more common, especially if the executives are able to completely control the terms of the contract with the unions. Striking workers are not the bad guy here. They're actively fighting for basic protections that will ultimately benefit us as audiences as well. For example, a major sticking point for both the writers and the actors is the use of AI. For writers, they wanted to limit the use of ChatGPT and similar programs to research rather than writing scripts, because they know that if given the choice between paying a human to write something or having a robot slap a bunch of words together based on an algorithm, studios are always going to pick what's cheaper, not what's better. For the actors, the studios proposed a contract that would allow them to scan any background actor into an AI program and use their likeness as they pleased in perpetuity with no compensation beyond the initial day of work. That is an absurd proposal, especially when you consider almost every big-name actor started in minor or background roles. It also runs into all kinds of thorny ethical issues, like what if they use your likeness to play an extremely sexualized character? A lot of actors turn down those roles for personal or professional reasons, but with a contract like this, the studio can use you however they want. This whole situation certainly makes the recent episode of Black Mirror, Joan is Awful, hit harder.
What right do they have to kill my abuela with this deep, fake, heretic abomination?
Page 39, paragraph 8.
But hey, Netflix is no stranger to irony. I've seen some people argue they think AI would produce better, faster content and that all art is derivative anyways, but I just don't find that point persuasive. First of all, I don't want to watch Frankenstein movies and TV shows crapped out by an algorithm. We already basically have that. That's Marvel movies. I don't want to see actors reproduced by empty automatons generated from their previous work. I value the connection to other humans in analyzing the choices of the writers or the nuances of an actor's performance. I like noticing details in set design or costuming or animation. There's something so fascinating about how deliberate everything in a movie or television production is. But if you think Hollywood is a cynical, unoriginal cesspit of cash grabs now, imagine how much worse it'll be when they're able to cut people out of the equation entirely and just generate whatever they want instantly. You think the remakes and reboots are soulless and insufferable now? Imagine them with no writers and with performances and scripts cobbled together by an AI. A constant stream of empty, derivative drivel based on what they think will make us consume the most. But even if I'm wrong and AI can create good content, we lose so much when we remove the human element from art. With AI, it makes art without intention, completely empty and devoid of meaning, based on what the computer algorithm thinks we want to see. What the striking workers are fighting for is to preserve the existence of the industry as we know it from unprecedented disruption and destruction. There's this bizarre devaluation of basically every kind of art and the artists who create it, where people will imply they shouldn't expect to earn a decent living from their work, as if it's greedy to want compensation for their skills simply because some people do it as a hobby instead of a profession. Despite the way in which art enriches all of our lives, it's routinely viewed as uniquely superfluous. For example, only in the arts are people regularly asked to work in exchange for exposure. And it's so sad because I think the Dead Poets Society really got it right.
Medicine, law, business, engineering, these are noble pursuits and necessary to sustain life. But poetry, beauty, romance, love, these are what we stay alive for.
We need artists. They are worth protecting. They do create value. In the case of actors and writers, we rarely see the work it takes not only to break into the industry, but to actually produce a story or performance. They often work extremely long hours, sometimes far from their homes and families. They may make decent money for a particular job, but that money is inconsistent, particularly with how cancel-happy streaming services can be. Residuals used to provide some measure of security and consistent income based on rebroadcasts. For example, the stars of Friends made millions from syndication, but those days are long gone. When you watch a show on a streaming service, the actors and writers who created it are earning essentially nothing, while it continues to generate revenue for the company by drawing in new or repeat viewers and encouraging subscriptions, or when a studio sells a license for their original to stream on another platform. The people who did the actual work aren't seeing any of the ongoing value that it generates. Meanwhile, the compensation of executives continues to balloon as they admonish the content creators who earn them their money for asking for enough to support themselves and for safeguards to protect their jobs. CEO of Disney, Bob Iger, was quoted stating that the demands of the writers aren't realistic, and that he finds what they're asking for disturbing. He said this without a hint of irony while earning $15 million in 2022 and potentially being on track to earn $27 million, including bonuses in 2023. Meanwhile, the unreasonable amount the writers are asking for is about $75 million, or 0.091% of Disney's total revenue. For some studios, the amount the writers were asking for doesn't even amount to a rounding error. The highest individual studio amount by percentage would have been for Paramount at $45 million, or 0.148% of Paramount's total revenue. Amid this climate, Netflix's executives, who were compensated a total of $166 million in 2022 and attempted to increase their own compensation by tens of millions more during the strike before investors voted against it, are opposing the writers' demands for approximately $68 million in compensation. The gall is astonishing, and it makes me so sad when I see people buy into the executives' propaganda. Who does it serve? Certainly not us or the content these companies distribute. Literally not even 0.15% is what the workers are asking for at the high end. Not even an entire percent. And they're being told that's unrealistic. While the executives cruise around on multi-million-dollar yachts and give themselves millions in annual bonuses. So, what can we do? Well, if you can afford it, you can donate to funds for the writers and actors who are striking. I will leave a link in the description. You can also write, email, and call studios, as well as bother them on the Muskrat Hell site or any other public social media platform, and threaten to cancel your subscription if they don't settle things with the unions soon. I've seen a lot of well-meaning people asking for boycotts, but currently the unions are explicitly not asking for a boycott of content that's currently airing. What's coming out now was made prior to the strike, and shows and movies doing numbers is actually really good for negotiations, as that's value they can point to while bargaining. Keep an eye on news related to the strike, though, and if it does get to the point of a boycott, we can all act accordingly. As consumers, we are in a position to put pressure on studios to come to the negotiating table, and we should always be in solidarity with striking workers, not against them. I want my shows back too, y'all, but I want them back with better working conditions for the people who create them and bring them to life for us. So please support the strike. All right, that's all I have on this for now, though. Let me know if you want to see more videos related to this kind of stuff in the comment section down below, and let me know what you think of the strike. What show are you most sad to see delayed? Like and subscribe for more videos, and see you next time. Thanks for watching. Wiedersehen.